A charity auction in Manhattan. Crystal chandeliers casting golden light across marble floors. A billionaire stands silent while his mistress shoves his pregnant wife to the ground in front of 500 witnesses. He thinks money and power will bury the truth. He believes no one will dare challenge him. But he doesn't know that 4 Navy SEAL brothers just pulled up outside, and they're about to turn his empire into ashes. What happens next isn't just revenge. It's a reckoning that will shake the foundations of New York's elite. Stay with us, because this story cuts deeper than you can imagine. Tell us where you're watching from. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom glittered like a frozen dream. Every guest moved with practiced elegance, their diamonds catching light, their smiles hiding secrets. The air smelled of imported roses and expensive lies. At the center of it all stood Elena Martinez, 7 months pregnant, wearing a flowing champagne-colored gown that her grandmother had worn decades ago. It represented grace. Tonight, that grace would be shattered. Her husband, Victor Kane, stood across the room surrounded by investors, and his mistress, Sienna Vale. She wore crimson silk that clung to her like blood. Her laughter rang out sharp and cruel. When she touched Victor's arm, he didn't move away. When she whispered in his ear, he smiled the smile that used to belong to Elena. Elena forced herself to breathe through the ache in her chest. She knew people were watching. They always did. The cameras loved tragedy dressed in silk. She walked toward him, her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. The orchestra played a waltz that drowned her heartbeat. "Victor," she said softly when she reached him. The crowd turned slightly, pretending not to notice, but waiting for the scene. He looked at her the way one looks at furniture that no longer matches the room. "Elena, you shouldn't be standing. It's not good for the baby." Her voice trembled. "I just wanted to greet your guests." Sienna tilted her head with a poisonous smile. "Guests? Darling, I'm more than that. I'm his new business partner." She held up a glass of red wine, swirling it deliberately. "You should rest. Stress isn't good for expectant mothers." A few people nearby gasped quietly. Elena's smile cracked. "You don't belong here." Victor's tone sharpened. "Don't cause a scene, Elena. You've embarrassed me enough this year." The words struck harder than a slap. Her throat tightened, but she refused to let tears show. She took a small step back, but Sienna moved closer as if drawn to cruelty. Suddenly, Sienna's heel caught the hem of Elena's gown. The wine glass in her hand tipped. It shattered on the marble floor, splashing red liquid across the pale fabric. The crowd gasped. Elena froze, her breathing shallow. "Oh my," Sienna said sweetly. "I didn't see you there." Elena bent down instinctively, trying to clean the stain. But before she could move, Sienna shifted her weight. The sharp stiletto heel pressed against the soft fabric near Elena's stomach. Then she leaned forward, applying pressure. Time stopped. The music died. The crowd froze between disbelief and horror. Elena's eyes widened in shock. "Stop," she whispered as Sienna's smile didn't fade. "Accidents happen." Pain exploded through Elena's body. She gasped, her knees buckling as she fell to the floor. Her hands clutched her belly. The sound of her cry mixed with shattering glass. Victor stepped forward, but not to help her. His expression remained eerily calm. She tripped. He told the security guards rushing toward them. "Handle it." "No," Elena cried weakly. "She stepped on me." The guards hesitated. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded everything. Guests whispered, torn between pity and curiosity. Suddenly, a voice like thunder echoed from the entrance. "That's enough." The ballroom doors burst open. 4 men entered, moving with military precision, dressed in black tactical clothing. The room went silent as if the world itself paused. The first man, Marcus Martinez, had eyes that could cut through steel. Behind him were his brothers, Isaiah, fierce and focused, Dominic, calm but lethal, and Julian, the youngest but no less dangerous. Their presence demanded respect and delivered warning that Marcus's voice filled the room. "Turn off the music." The orchestra stopped instantly. The only sound left was Elena's faint breathing. Julian moved first, rushing to his sister and dropping to his knees beside her. "Elena," he whispered, his hands hovering over her stomach, shaking. "Who did this?" Her lips trembled. "Sienna." "Victor." Isaiah turned to the projector operator. "Show the security footage." Now, within seconds, the LED wall lit up with the recording from the ballroom cameras. The entire room watched the moment Sienna deliberately pressed her heel against Elena's abdomen. The replay silenced even the most skeptical guest. Victor's jaw tightened. This isn't what it looks like. Marcus stepped toward him, his voice calm but deadly. It looks exactly like what it is. Cameras exploded with flashes. Sienna trembled. She's lying. It was an accident. Dominic stood, his face pale with fury. You call this an accident? You almost killed her child. Isaiah gestured toward the nearest guard. Seal the exits. No one leaves until the police arrive. Victor raised his voice. You don't have that authority. Marcus looked him straight in the eye. Watch me. Julian lifted Elena carefully into his arms. The camera lights flickered across her face as they carried her toward the exit. Marcus turned to Victor one last time. His voice was low and final. You made your last mistake tonight. From this moment on, the world will know what you are. For the first time that night, Victor looked afraid. Hours later, Elena lay in a hospital bed, her face pale, but her eyes awake. Monitors beeped steadily beside her. The doctor checked her vitals and smiled softly. The baby's heartbeat is strong. You're both fighters. Elena's hand rested on her stomach. Where are my brothers? Right here, Marcus said, stepping into the room. His brothers filed in behind him, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. Isaiah held up a tablet showing live news coverage. The footage went viral. Victor and Sienna are being charged with assault. The district attorney is calling it attempted murder. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Will they pay for what they did? Marcus knelt beside her bed. They'll pay for everything. The trial came swiftly. The courtroom filled faster than police could manage. The public wanted to witness justice. Victor Kane had ruled New York's financial district for decades. No one believed he could fall. When the footage played on the courtroom screens, silence swept through the chamber. Every gasp, every click of Sienna's heel, every second of Elena's pain echoed through the room. The prosecutor stood. This isn't just assault. This is premeditated cruelty against a defenseless woman and her unborn child. Victor's lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. But when audio evidence surfaced, Victor's voice telling Sienna to teach her a lesson, the courtroom erupted. Sienna broke down. He made me do it. He said if I didn't, he'd destroy me. Victor turned on her. You're lying. Marcus stood slowly. You've lied long enough, Victor. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. The foreman stood. We find the defendants guilty on all counts. The judge's voice was firm. Victor Kane, you are sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Sienna Vale, 15 years. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Victor's face drained of color. Sienna sobbed uncontrollably. 6 months later, Elena stood on the steps of a new building in downtown Manhattan. The sign read, The Grace Foundation, in silver letters, surrounded by champagne-colored flowers. Her daughter, Sophia, slept peacefully in her arms. Reporters gathered, but this time the cameras were gentle. They were there for hope. Elena spoke clearly, her voice steady. 6 months ago, I stood in a place of darkness. I thought the world would remember me as the woman who was broken. But I learned that being broken doesn't mean being finished. The crowd listened in silence. This foundation exists for every woman who was silenced, every child who was forgotten, and every survivor who thought she could never stand again. Out of pain, we rise. Applause thundered through the street. Behind her stood her 4 brothers, proud and protective. Marcus stepped forward. Our sister taught us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing up even when you're shaking. As the sun set over Manhattan, Elena looked down at her daughter. You were born from courage, she whispered. You'll never know the world I did. The city lights shimmered below like stars reborn. The Kane Empire was gone. In its place stood something fragile yet unbreakable, a woman who survived, brothers who protected, and a foundation built from ashes. The storm had passed. A new morning had arrived. If Elena's story moved you, if you felt her pain and celebrated her strength, please hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that survival is possible, that family means everything, and that justice can still win. Subscribe to our channel because we tell stories about courage that cuts through darkness. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.